What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Diesel Creek. If this is your first time joining us, my name's Matt. This beautiful gem of a garden tractor is a 1970s, early 70s International Cub Cadet 129. I am extremely familiar with the Cub Cadet garden tractors of the International variety. They made them from 61 to 83 when International sold out to Cub Cadet Corporation, which was a subsidiary of MTD, and then they went. So, the early ones built by International are tanks, and actually playing around with Cub Cadet tractors like this is what got me into mechanics in the first place. So, I probably had 30 or 40 of these things over the years, and I probably still have 10 or 15 of them kicking around in various stages of restored parts and working condition, plus various attachments. You've seen them in the background in some of my other videos, but anyway. The story of this one is that it came from a big old barn that a friend of mine was cleaning out. It's a real shame. There's a lot of other stuff in that barn. But anyways, well, that's another video. I got some other cool things coming from that barn. I'm just guessing that this old girl's been sitting about 15, maybe 20 years by looking at it. It's been sitting for quite a while. And it's got a Kohler K-Series engine in it, which is a great engine. But I should be able to turn it by hand, and I can't turn this one. So let's get into it. So, this girl is barn fresh, to say the least. She's got 4 flats and about a 1/4 inch of dust on her. She doesn't have any bells and whistles. A lot of these came with 3-point hitches on the back here. The gear drive models actually had the possibility for a rear PTO. And headlights was a common option. We do not have headlights. And in the gear drive models, a creeper gear was another hard to find option in these things, but very useful if you're a gear drive guy, which I am. This one is a hydrostatic. These are very good, reliable hydrostatic units. They don't really wear out. They get some slop in the linkages, but other than that, they're pretty much bulletproof. I've only ever heard of a couple pumps going out, and I've been around a ton of these things and talked to tons of people that collect them. So I picked this up off a buddy of mine that was cleaning out the barn, like I said. I gave him 50 bucks for it. Basically, he just wanted to cover a little bit of his time and some scrap value. I have not opened the hood yet. Woo. Well, right off the bat there, we're missing some J bolts, or T bolts rather. They go in here and then bolt down in there. Keep your hood together. I have those, so I'll just have to scare up a couple of those and install them. Looking at our engine here, what can we tell? Well, the muffler's not rotted out. A lot of these old mufflers just got big gaping holes in them at this point in their lives. Oh, we've got mouse nest. See that junk and debris down in there? Oh, we've got serious mouse nest. See the corrosion down there? On the front of the K-Series engines, there is an aluminum bearing housing that you have to remove the crankshaft. And I've got a good feeling about this. As I said, I could not turn this engine by hand. It is locked up. So just right here on the starter, this is a starter generator. I should be able to just grab this and spin the engine over really easy, but it is not budging. But I've seen it before where the mice get down in here, build a big nest on top of the flywheel, and then the flywheel galds itself to that bearing plate, and that'll lock up the engine. I've actually got lucky with that once before, and was able to just clean out the flywheel really good, chip all the mouse urine away from behind the flywheel, and then the thing would spin over and run fine. So I'm hoping that's what's going on here. We might be getting lucky there. Now it does look like the seals leak quite a bit on here, so I won't be surprised if we have none. It's touching the dipstick, but just barely. We're right at the bottom of the add zone. Let's take a gander at our air filter. Ooh. Well, that's not the worst one I've seen, but she's seen better days, that's for sure. I think I have a couple of these in stock still. Finally, we'll have a look in the fuel tank, see if we have anything left in here. Nope, she's drier than a popcorn fart, and the tank's not rusty or anything, so that's good. What's it look like under the seat? well, the guy I got it from was going to scrap it, so he just cut the connections for the battery and yanked the battery out. So I'll have to put some new eyelets on our battery leads, but the battery sits down in here and a lot of time will rust out this plate, so it's still in there, it's still strong. That's a good sign. The fender pan in general is in good shape. I got a couple little dings here, not bad at all. A lot of times the reflectors are all gone and these fenders are bent and mangled from people backing into stuff. Or the other thing that happens with these is people will put tire chains on for plowing snow and they won't have the chains tight enough, and the chain crossbars will actually fling up here and hook the fenders and suck the fenders into the tires. I've seen that plenty of times. Got our serial number down here. I can clean that off and I can run the serial number and determine whether this is a 70, I believe they made these from 71 to 74. So I'll be able to figure that out. Finally, our mower deck that came with this tractor is in pretty darn good shape for the age. She's still solid. A lot of times these are all rusted out along here. There'll just be random patches of holes all through the deck. The original skids are still on it, which is something. We do have one rusted out spot over here, but it's not too bad. I can patch that up pretty easy. And that's the worst of it from what I've seen. This is like a chute extension kind of thing that's on here, and I've actually never even seen one of those in person. Every mower deck I've ever gotten has that thing ripped off, and if you're lucky they have the skid on the side here still. So I kind of collected these things. Like I said, I had quite a few of them. I think I still have 15 of them or so. These are the later ones. I'm not as into these ones as I was the earlier ones. I have several 1961s. I have a lot of what they call the narrow frame series, which was a different design than this, and they were the much earlier tractors. Those are the ones I get into. I snagged this one because the price was right and it was in good shape. Let's see if we can't get this thing back to running and mowing condition. Now the first thing I want to do is the same thing I do to just about every engine that's been sitting for a long time without turning over, especially one that won't turn over. We're going to pull the plug out of it. Ugh. Yep. We're going to get a good healthy dose of Kroil down inside the engine here. Really saturate it. Use the straw and try to blow it over towards the piston, because the piston is not directly below the plug hole. And we try to get some of the oil down into the cylinder and let it soak on top of that piston. So something to be careful of too if you're messing around with engines like this. You see all that junk around the plug hole there? I pulled the spark plug out and I noticed that was there before I did, so I was careful that I didn't knock any of that debris down inside the cylinder. But just be careful when you're putting the plug back in now that you don't knock any of that in there. And we're going to end up taking these tins off and sucking all that out of there with a vacuum or something. Not important at all right now, but it's just bugging me. I'm going to go ahead and throw some air in these tires and see if they hold. The front ones already have tubes in them. I don't hear any air leaking. That's impressive. Those tires are pretty well dry rotted. I'd be surprised if they hold up very long. The bead just hit. I tell you what, I don't hear an air leak anywhere. I'm impressed. They look pretty rough. I figured for sure they'd leak. All four. I'm impressed. I can't believe that. Alright, well I guess mission one should be trying to get this engine broke loose, so we'll go ahead and remove the fuel tank and try to get some access to the front of the engine here so we can clean that rat's nest on top of the flywheel. Go ahead and get these engine tins off of here so we can clean out all the mouse house underneath of it. These are a great project for somebody that's new to mechanicking. They're pretty darn simple machines, easy to work on. And I'll tell you what, you don't need a big tool set. Pretty much everything on these tractors is 7/16, ½ inch, or 9/16. And you can do 90% of the work on this tractor if you have those 3 wrenches. You don't even need sockets. Another great reason these are great for beginners or people that want to start taking on projects like this is because parts are still readily available for them. All the Kohler engine parts are available from Kohler and also aftermarket manufacturers. Yeah, we got a heck of a mouse nest in there. Wowzers. Look at all the mouse house. The whole flywheel cover is just full up of mouse house. Ugh. Well, I've made the decision we're going to go ahead and just pull the engine. It's going to be easier for everything if we just pull the engine. Like I said, it's really not hard. It's just a few bolts. We got 2 wires going to our starter generator here. We got a coil wire, and we got to take off the belt on the front PTO, throttle and choke cable, and 4 bolts from the underneath, and the engine will just slide right up out. This is cloth wiring harness, so that's OEM. That's never been replaced. I think the later models had the regular, I don't even know what you call the more modern style of cable with the rubbery kind of outside. I think it's a vinyl covered wire, something like that. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that this is a 1972 model without running the serial number. I will run it by the end of the video and let you know what it actually is. This is your Pto engagement lever over here. There we go. We can easily get the belt off by releasing the PTO pressure there. I remove the retaining hairpin over here, and then we can slide that rod forward. Next, we'll release the tension on the mule drive pulleys. So that backs the pulleys off, and we got slop in our belt now. Should be able to just flop that belt right off like that now. Next thing is just this little coil wire. Now just the 4 engine mount bolts and we're good. Now a little pro tip here. The last 4 bolts that hold the engine in there, 2 of them are underneath the axle, between the axle and the frame. And it's darn near impossible to get to those bolts without jacking the thing up and using the swing in the axle to get your tool in there easier. So you push the axle down like that and the bolt's right here and you can get to it a lot easier. Well, I stand corrected. I should say this is where the bolt is supposed to be. This one is missing. That one is still there, but looks pretty loose. How's that for pretty grungy under here, huh? That's a lot of years of grass and oil leaking. Well, the bolt on the other side underneath the axle is also missing, so I'll have to get some new ones. Hopefully the oil pan didn't get damaged whenever those became loose and rattled their way out of there, because the axle pivoting like this, if that bolt starts to back out, the bolt will contact the axle and it can strip out the aluminum oil pan. The last thing we should have to do here, you see this pin that goes through the drive shaft. There's no drive belts on these tractors. Solid drive shaft, and we just need to give that a 1/4 turn like so, so it lines up with the slot and we can slide the engine forward and lift it right up out. These engines are not light by any means, but I've always been able to pick them up. Oh, You know what we forgot? I was getting a little excited there and forgot. We also need to take our throttle and choke cable off. They just have these little spring clips. Like so. Throttle cable. Choke cable should just flick right out of there as well. Alright, now we're ready to lift the engine up and out of here. Try not to throw your back out in the process. They've got some gravity to them. Place to grab one. There we go. I'm gonna fish this PTO rod out of here, like I said. Sometimes can be a struggle, especially by yourself. Come on, you. There we go. Come on. So close. Come on. Come on. There we go. Oh God. Yep. I can feel my discs compressing. Oh. Jeez. Well, if only I had some equipment around here, huh? Alright, so here's our power plant out in the open here. As I said before, this is a Kohler K-Series 12 horsepower, which makes K301, my mistake. 321 would be a 14 horse. So what we need to do is pull the bolts around this cover, pull it off, and see what horrors await us behind there. I was afraid of this. Yep, that bolt just snapped off. So corroded in there. I'm forgetting to get to the last bolt, which is right in behind here. Easier just to take the carburetor off, and I'm sure we're gonna have to take it off to clean it and rebuild it anyway, so we'll go ahead and just get that out of our way now. Why they need to have such long bolts on carburetors, I will never know. There we go. Carburetor's off. I'm betting it looks pretty clean. I'm betting it just needs a gasket and might not even need a needle and seat, but I'll probably stick one in it anyway. It's all. This is our drive shaft coupler. Remember when we had to give it the quarter turn to back it out of there? That's actually worn like that. It's not supposed to be that. That's supposed to just be a straight cut right through there. But over the years, the pin that runs through here hammers and hammers on this coupler and wears them out like that. But really, it doesn't hurt anything. Shoot some Kroil in here and try to lube that up a bit. Oh, look at that. Like magic, it's wiggling. There we go. Yeah. It ain't good. You guys ready to see what's behind door number 1? Ugh, it ain't good. Oh. Ugh. Look, there goes a spider. That is nasty. But it gets worse. Look at the inside of the engine cover. Oh my goodness. That is horrific. I wish you guys could smell it. It's a lovely spicy aroma that I think Glade would love to welcome to their product line. I'm gonna shop back up the loose stuff that's like crumbling and falling everywhere first, and then we'll go ahead and try to knock the rest of the bulk of it into a container to throw away. This is putrid. Ugh. Oh, there's that smell. Ugh. Well, it's still far from clean, but at least we can see what's going on here. It's just like I suspected. All the mouse urine ate away at this bearing plate, and the bearing plate oxidized to the flywheel. So what we're going to have to do here is we'll have to clean these holes up, put a puller on that flywheel, try to pop that bad boy off of there, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be fairly well galled on there. I don't know how the Kroil does it breaking down the mouse urine, but we'll go ahead and work on that. If anything's going to eat at it, this would be the stuff. I find that a regular old drill is the best way to use for tapping. It's easier to keep straight while turning. You know, when you have a T-handle or something, you wobble around until you really get it started. And then you also have an adjustable chuck on most cordless drills. I set that down around a 10, and then just let her eat. Just go real slow until you get it started, and then you can... You do that a few times, you'll get the feel for it, and it works real well, real quick. Here, look at that. I didn't even have to put much pressure on it. The thing popped right off of there. I never would have thought it would have come off that easy. Ugh. Well, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, huh? Oh, and the stink behind there. Oh, doggy. Contact. I think I mentioned in the beginning that I've had this on one other tractor. I saw it was close to this bad, but this is definitely worse. I mean, you can see up here, this pitting in the aluminum bearing plate is just horrendous. Look at a chisel. There's a big ridge of it here still. Clean out around these bolt holes and everything. It's gonna make a bit more mess, but I think the needle scaler is gonna be the proper tool to get this cleaned up right. Fingers crossed, the only thing that was holding it was that mouse house. Hoping it just spins. Well, it's not spinning super easy yet. Oh, there we go. It is indeed turning. We lucked out again. Look at that. It's turning nice and easy now. I bet we're going to pump out some Kroil out of the exhaust or the intake port here too, because I sprayed an awful lot down in there. Look at that. Proud to see that, huh? I'm going to go ahead and give this stuff a shot for the first time. This is from the same people that make Kroil. It's called Flowway. It's supposed to be some sort of cleaner and degreaser, so we'll give it a shot. They sent this over to me. I've never used it. No idea what to expect here. And make sure we get some good degreasing going on up in this head, because this is where all your cooling takes place. So if this thing's full of dirt and junk and grease, it'll never cool right. The engine will overheat and be junk. Before we reassemble this engine too, this is our PTO here, and there's a bearing in here that rides on the crankshaft, and I don't know if you can tell, it is just wallering around all over the place. So the bearing is definitely bad, and we'll replace that before we bother to put it back together because we'll just have to come right back into this. Well, the can for that flow away stuff says to use pressurized water, but my pressure washer's out at the farm, so this has got the best I got right now. Well, I for one am very impressed with that degreaser. I'm not just saying that. There is still a little bit of grease left, but I mean, probably a second and third washing would have taken care of that real easy. And let's not forget that I wasn't using a pressure washer, just a stinking garden hose. It's by far the best results I've ever gotten without using a pressure washer. Usually you don't even dent greasy crud like that without a pressure washer. That was pleasantly surprising. There is still a little bit left over, like I said, but that's a darn impressive job. This was all caked in it. The garden hose just washed it all right off. It's incredible. Let's go ahead and get this PTO removed so we can get our bearing ordered first thing in the morning. So 3 sets of set screws around this thing, and they're a doubled set screw. You'll see what I mean about that in a minute. These can be kind of a bear to get out of here, so I soaked them down several times before we got to this point, because I knew we'd be tearing into it. So there's the first one. This is the first set screw to come out. That is just a locking set screw. That one stops the next set screw from backing out. There we go. That's the first set screw. So they sit down in the hole like this. One locks the next one. And I've heard some people say they even put blue Loctite on these, but I've never had a problem with them backing out, honestly. Well, we got good news here. This thing just basically fell right off in my hand when I got to the last set screw. Didn't even need to loosen the last set, actually. This is your friction disc. This thing is looking pretty good. It doesn't need replaced. It's got a little bit of slop, but not too bad. Still got plenty of life left in it, so we're not going to mess with that. I got in here to replace this bearing, and honestly, it doesn't have much wiggle in it at all. Doesn't sound too bad. I think it'll run for a long time. We're going to try to pop the dust cover off, spray some good lube in there. So like I said, I think we're going to reuse the bearing, but we do have to remove it so that we can take off this pulley and change out the rear main seal there. These can be a bit confusing for some people to take apart if they've never done it before. So they got one set screw on this locking collar here. What we do is break that guy loose. Then you're going to take a punch, and there's going to be another hole right there, and I believe we knock it that direction. You'll see why in a second. So you'll figure out real quick if this is the right direction or not. I don't remember. Yep, that's the right direction. Right there, she should be freed up, and the bearing should slide off. But at this point, this guy's probably pretty well stuck on there. It's probably an original bearing, if I had to guess. Should take you a nice little puller like so, and it should pull off without too much fight. Yeah, it's coming. There we go. So there's the bearing. You see how the back of this bearing is made like this? You got this side's really thin and then this side's really fat. That's not worn out, and that's not it's not an illusion. That's called an eccentric. It's a locking collar. The locking collar is made the same way, thin on one side, thick on the other. And then when you try to spin this, see that? How it offsets itself? Hope you guys can see that. Basically it just creates a bind on the crankshaft there and holds that bearing from sliding around. Pretty slick old school tech. I'm sure those exist plenty of other places, but that's the only place that I've ever seen it used, I think. Now we got 2 more set screws, and our PTO basket here will slide right off after we take the belt loose. These PTO basket pulleys can be a bear to get off of here without bending up, because if you try to use a puller on them, you end up just bending these big pulleys here. I know, I've done it more than once. So what we'll actually want to do is take some Scotch-Brite and clean up the shaft real good first so that it doesn't get stuck on any of this dirt corrosion, and then we'll give it a good shot of oil, and hopefully it just wiggles its way right off of there. Alright, so what we need to do to get this off of here is we're going to take a torch and just heat this up around here, and what that'll do is make this collar expand, and that'll give us the clearance we need to slide this thing off, because like I say, a puller will just destroy this thing. I didn't say you couldn't use a 3-jaw. Said you had to be careful you don't bend it like I'm doing right now. There we go, finally. I didn't say you couldn't use a 3-jaw, I said you just had to be careful when you did it. If you get into these tractors, my recommendation is just really take your time with these things. These are the most difficult part of getting this apart. Alright, so now with this clutch pulley off here, we can really get access to our crankshaft and crankshaft seal back here. You can see all kinds of gunk built up on the back of the block. That's from years of this crankshaft seal leaking oil, no doubt. When I first started messing with these tractors, I didn't have any fancy tools like this. This is a slide hammer. I think it's actually for body work, but I use it as a seal remover. And what I'll do is drill a little hole in the seal, and then I'll screw this thing into there, and that'll pull the seal out. But what I used to do before I had anything like that was just simple drywall screws. I'd run them into the seals there, and you can use a crowbar or hammer or whatever you got and just work it back and forth, and it'll pull that seal out all the same. Ain't that pretty slick? If you're smarter than me, you'll clean all the dirt away from that before you pull the seal out. That way you don't knock it all down inside the engine case. But alright, so here we got our new seals. I don't know if this is a genuine color, but this one is. I like to take a little bit of 90 weight, wipe them in the seals first, and a little bit around the outside wouldn't hurt either. I'll go ahead and slide it in there, and when you do, just be careful. This is a single lip seal, so you got a wiper out here that just keeps dirt away, and then this one in here is what actually keeps the oil in. So when you slide it on there, you're kind of going against the lip here, so just be careful you don't roll the seal over at all, and that'll make your new seal completely worthless. No. Yeah, there you go. One freshly installed crankshaft seal. Alright, since we got our seal reinstalled, I cleaned up the shaft a bit so that this thing would slide on easier. There we go. Look, before this thing was wobbling all over the place. Now she's right tight. Now we just need to throw our locking set screws in there and we're good to go. Alright, now we're on the front side of the engine here. We're going to have to pull the seal here and replace it too. We might as well while we're in here. And there we go. Well, the last thing we need to do before we can reassemble our engine, and you don't have to do this while the engine's out, but it makes it easier, is we need to clean up our breaker points here. You can see there's a bit of moisture gets in behind this cover. Now that moisture I'm sure is just from me washing it yesterday. But these breaker points from sitting so long, they get oxidized and then they don't make contact. So I've been using emery boards to clean these things up my whole life. Everybody says, oh, you can get a points file, but I've had a lot of people tell me they use emery boards too, so they must work fine. You see that? Just a couple passes across there, how much gunk is up on that emery board. So we'll just pass this through here 30-40 times. Then we'll blow them off with the air gun. Make sure we don't have any of that grit left in there. Alright, just finished draining the old oil out of this engine. That's what we got. There was a little bit of thin stuff in there. I think it must be water, but I think it's from pressure washing. You know, it's not like there was water sitting in it. So the tractor came pretty darn clean. That flow-away stuff really impresses me. So it did a great job. I took the tunnel cover off the transmission, blasted off the top of the hydro drive unit there and everything. The engine compartment, I mean, man, you guys saw what it looked like before. It was just a big black blob of scudgy, nasty, grassy, greasy gunk. And she's downright yellow again, so I think we're about ready to drop the engine back in here and get everything connected and try to get this baby fired up. You guys have seen me rebuild tons of carburetors on the channel, so I'm not going to go too in depth on this one. It really doesn't look too bad. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be awful bad in there. I think we'll be pleasantly surprised. I'll pop the bowl off with you. See what's behind door number 2. Any guesses? Do we think it's going to be good, bad, indifferent? Oh, I think it's going to be clean. Look at that. That thing's beautiful. That's what I want to see. I don't want to have to work for it. I did buy a new gasket kit and needle and seat. I'm not even sure that we're going to put the needle and seat in it. This thing looks beautiful. This is one of the cleanest carburetors I think I've ever torn apart. I had a feeling it was going to be clean. You gotta love it when those gut feelings pan out for you. All right, time for the moment of truth. I got everything ready to go. She's full of oil. There's fuel in the tank. The wiring's all connected. The cables are all connected. I've got a temporary battery rigged up in the back here. The brake pedal is locked, which should keep the transmission in neutral, but you gotta watch. Sometimes on these things, there'll be so much wear in the hydro control that it won't actually be in neutral, and it'll still want to creep around on you after it starts up. So keep an eye on that. But we're going to turn the fuel onto the carburetor here. Also, I'm not sure how much you guys saw the carburetor rebuild, because I think I forgot to press record apparently. But it was a really clean carburetor. Wasn't much to do in there. I have not tried it yet. I don't know if the ignition switch is even going to do anything. I'll give it some choke and some throttle. Throttle's all the way up. We'll just bump the key, see what happens. Nothing. Well, that's disappointing. So I probably should have bench tested the starter while I had it off, but we can test it right here. Oh yeah, she turns over all right. All right. Probably just a problem with the solenoid that engages the starter. A lot of times they get crappy from sitting so long. Well, we're just going to bypass all that for right now and see what happens. Contact. Maybe. Let's explain this one to me. Oh, did you see that? It made a tuft. It tried to go right there. It wants to run. Woohoo! It started. It actually sounded really good. It shut off pretty quickly, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Back the throttle off a hair. We'll give it a second go. You ready?
Listen!
baby sounds fantastic. Oh my goodness. Ready? I knew this was a clean looking tractor. I figured for sure it would be a good runner, and it looks like I'm right. I'm sure I'll have to still play with the carburetor a little bit after we get it warmed up here real good. But man, I mean, just for a quick, I had to hurry up and open up the main jet a little bit. It kept wanting to shut off. Give it a little more fuel and it took right off though. Look at that. We're just about ready to cruise the neighborhood now, huh? Oh boys. Hot diggity. Can you believe it? This thing runs fantastic. It mows grass, and all four of these rotten tires that we inflated yesterday morning are still holding there the next day, over 24 hours later. Impressive to say the least. I had a good feeling about this tractor, and it looks like I'm right. So I don't know about you guys, but I am very, very happy with the way this turned out. She's definitely barn fresh. She's not the shiniest girl in the fleet. But honestly, if you wanted to, I bet you could probably shine this thing up pretty good. A little bit of buffing, and she would be looking fantastic. But she's got her barn clothes on still. I kind of like that about a tractor. Well, I think that about wraps up this episode, guys. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so I can see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Later.